Okay, now you cannot say things, and you have to be careful what you say and watch those eye rolls, okay? Because we can see them. You might think I can't see every screen. I got you. So watch those eye rolls. My name is Micah Hunt, and I am your host with the most on this virtual presentation Friday. And I work for Garrett Realty Partners, not as a realtor. I help seniors downsize, and we work here locally in the Virginia market. But we are able to assist across the country. So more about that at another time. This is not about me at all. This is about our speakers and the presentation for today. So because today is a very special or very difficult day for a lot of people, it is 9/11. It is 19 years since that happened. And we wanted to have a moment of a wonderful experience that we're going to have Mary Dorse, who will provide a violin experience for us, and I will let her take over.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? All good? All right. Without further ado, like Micah said, this is obviously a very, very solemn day of remembrance for us as Americans. And so I just wanted to play a few pieces just to have sort of a little moment of remembrance for those that we lost during 9/11. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Micah, we can't hear you.
Steven, you're breaking up.
Can't hear you, Steve. Mike, I can't hear you either.
Is there something in front of your microphone?
Ladies and gents, can you hear me now? All right, I just wanted to let you know I said some incredible things that you all missed, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to repeat them. In any event, good morning, everyone. I was making mention that that was a beautiful performance. My name is Steve Dunn, and I am with Harmony Senior Services, and we offer senior living up and down the Eastern Seaboard. We have 40 communities to serve you. Since we were talking about screenings and safety, I thought it would be important for us to chat a little bit about what Harmony has done to ensure the safety and health of our residents, their families, and our team members. I think that's important that you understand that. Can we still hear me? Yes? Perfect. All right. A couple of the items that we do to ensure that everyone's safe during the time of COVID. We carefully monitor all local, state, and federal rules and regulations to ensure that we're following them. Our home office task force meets daily and communicates any and all pertinent changes to the communities at large each day. We have tested all associates and residents. We continue to test any associate and resident that shows signs or symptoms or may have been exposed by our extensive contact tracing method. All associates, guests, residents that go out and return are screened thoroughly, including verifying that they have not been exposed and that they have not been exhibiting symptoms. We also complete temporal thermometer checks on every person that comes into the community every time. Our communities engage in enhanced cleaning protocols with leading technology to ensure surface areas are cleaned and disinfected routinely and after every group use. Some examples, we have bipolarized ionization filters in our HVAC systems that destroy organic particles. We use foggers that are CDC rated with a COVID kill rate. And we provide PPE to our residents and associates. All of our new move-ins, and yes, we are taking new move-ins, are tested for COVID prior to move-in. All new associates are tested prior to their first day of work. Visitation is open and encouraged at our communities for our residents and our families. We know how important it is to stay connected even during a trying time. We do require all of our visitors to complete our screening, practice social distancing, wear face masks, and visit the residents either outside or in their resident apartments. Those are just a few items that I think display how Harmony takes safety very, very seriously and how we've made tremendous efforts and investments to keep our community safe. But I'm inviting all of you to come visit and have that experience. So come to a Harmony nearby, say hello to one of the wonderful directors of sales on this call, and that's all I had to say about that. Without further ado, I'm going to be quiet and introduce Charles Mann, our keynote speaker. Charles, go ahead. Charles, if you're speaking, we can't hear you now. The best thing to do is log in and log out. How about that technology, folks?
I believe that's the surefire fix-all.
There
Reboot.
it is. I usually either that or I unplug. Now, allow me to let you know that I'll just keep talking because I love the sound of my own voice. And perhaps my dog, Bob Barker, may introduce himself on this call and say hello to all of you because he's been really quiet even through the violin performance. Bob, come on. Let's see. Hold on a second. Oh, he's shy now. Come here, Bob. Until Charles arrives.
Hello. You got me?
Yeah.
Bob Barker. And he is introducing Charles Mann.
Nice. All right. Everybody hear me now? You got me? Hello?
We can hear you, sir. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you for having me, Micah, on this, I think, monumental Friday. And wanted to talk about visitation and health screening in senior living. And a little bit about my background. I grew up with a father who began building senior living communities in the late 80s. So I'm kind of a senior living kid and grew up talking about everything senior living. the dinner table and during the summers. And so obviously there's been a massive change in the industry. When assisted living, what we know as assisted living first started, it was really called personal care. At least it was in Georgia. And through the process and through really the twists and turns of senior living, assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing, we've come to I think a kind of a solid practice of what it means to be in assisted living, memory care, and independent living. And so what I want to talk about today is really what people are doing statewide that are now receiving visitors. There's still a lot of communities across the country that are not accepting visitors, that are still in phase 1 and phase 2. For Georgia, as an example, we are still in the second phase of the visitation process from a regulatory perspective. One thing about my background as well is I actually own 2 assisted living communities. And through that process and through understanding senior living, I helped to create a technology that can help communities go through that screening process for all sorts of different types of individuals that might come into a senior living community. And so because Accushield, which is another company that I own and allows for a screening process, I get to talk with a lot of operators across the country about their visitation requirements. And we're in about 48 states right now, and it seems that each state is a little bit different. So what we've done at Accushield is try to create a system that can be customized based on state requirements. And in talking with Micah, what I thought would be most beneficial is to discuss New York. New York is probably the furthest in the process of allowing visitors to come and go in communities. They were the first really to go into lockdown, but actually one of the first to open up their doors to allow visitors to come and go. And so a few requirements that I think all senior living communities will at some point be required to capture are what you see in the bullets here. Each visitor that comes in will have to be logged, and there's a number of different ways to log this information. But as a visitor comes in, that community will need to collect a first and last name, the physical address of that visitor, a telephone number, date and time, email address, and then they'll have to be cleared for screening. And that could be, that would be temperature and individual specific questions that are designed by the CDC in that state. And so in this short demonstration, I really wanted to talk about when you do open up and when those doors open and you fully allow visitors back in, what does that process look like? And so these are the types of individuals that might be coming and going in your community, either currently or likely here in the near future. You obviously have home care. You have obviously your adult children, your DME, volunteers, clergy, vendors, and also staff. And so what we're seeing, especially in New York and many other heavy regulated states, is the capturing of the information that we described in the last slide. In some communities, they're doing this in a manual process. They're using paper sign-in books for maybe their third-party healthcare providers, one for volunteers, and then an additional one for staff members. So you can have up to 3 paper sign-in books. You might use an Excel spreadsheet, as well as in most states, you're required to validate a temperature. And not necessarily to save that temperature from a numerical perspective, but more of a pass-fail. And so Micah asked me to come on and talk about our solution to really streamlining this process of signing in all your visitors, your staff, your families, your friends, your vendors, your third-party healthcare providers, and really moving from a paper sign-in book and adjacent thermometer to more of a streamlined tablet-based system that can either sit at the front door, or it can also sit on a stand that might be in your breezeway, that is a covered breezeway that has maybe an in and out door, or somewhere near the front entrance. And so this is the device that we have created. We've been around about 7 years, and we have recently, over the last 5 months, integrated a temperature check. And so as this process continues to move going into phase 2, 3, and 4, we believe that going from a paper model to more of a digital model would be beneficial to the community. I think instill confidence in your adult children, your visitors, your families, and your residents, and your staff as they sign in and out. And so this is just a quick look at what that looks like. And as an example here, this would be a sign-in for a staff. So here is an example of what it would look like, that first screen. They would hit the sign-in button. Then that person would select what category individual they are. Are they healthcare? Are they a healthcare provider? Are they a volunteer? Are they a resident? Or are they community staff? And in this example, we're going to go with community staff because that's who's coming and going the most. But as you can imagine, the other categories are very similar. So that staff member hits community staff at the bottom, and they're asked to type in their mobile number. That can be their mobile number, or it can be their employee ID. That's up to the operator to choose how that individual is recognized. In this example, they'll type in their phone number. They'll immediately be recognized as a staff member. So Stephanie Hunt, as an example, and she works at Brighton Oaks today. And so Stephanie would hit yes. And then here are the screening questions that you're able to add to your tablet-based kiosk. As an example, right, are you sick with respiratory issues today? Fever, cough, shortness of breath, sore throat? If they hit no, they move on. Here's another example question. In the last 14 days, have you had any contact with someone with confirmed diagnosis of COVID-19? Now, if they hit yes to this question, it will stop them at the kiosk and send a text message to anybody within the community that would need to know that someone just signed in and selected yes to one of the COVID-19 questions. If you select no to all those questions, then you're asked to take a temperature. You line your face up in the square, it instantly takes your temperature and moves you on the process and prints you a badge. Now, if you record a temperature over the threshold that's customizable to the community, so let's just say that threshold is 100. So if that visitor, or excuse me, if that staff member selects or measures a temperature over 100, then they're instantly stopped as well, and a text message or email is sent to community management, letting them know that someone just signed in with a temperature above the threshold. Right? And that would be the stop button. And so all this information that is loaded into the kiosk is kept in a digital format that allows an operator of the community, whether it's an executive director, business office manager, resident care director, to be able to view this information and create reports based on really anything that they would like to know as far as visitors, staff, and other folks that come into the community. If there was a situation where you had a visitor that came into the community and they went to visit a particular resident, and let's call that resident Thomas Johnson. And 2 days later, that visitor calls the community and says, I have a positive COVID-19 test, and I wanted to make you aware of that. then the community, what they're going to need to do is figure out, well, you know, did that person go and see that resident? And so they could pull up that resident's name and all of those visitors in a way of tracing to see where that visitor went when they were in the community, because each visitor is required to select the resident that they're there to see. And so this is our solution to the visitor and staff sign-in process in senior living. And really, I wanted to keep it short and really hear from the folks on this call as to, are they accepting visitors and what are they doing to help streamline this process? Because in many states, like Georgia, for example, we're really most worried about staff members coming and going. But what happens when again, your adult children come back into the community and your third-party healthcare providers, vendors, and we begin to have that open door policy? How are we going to manage that? And so our hope is that through the utilization of technology in a kiosk-based system, that this will enable your communities to keep track of this information and maintain those records that are required to be kept by the state. So with that, would love to have hear any questions that people have.
Charles, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. I don't know if we can hear Micah, so I'll kind of be your chat guy.
Okay.
If that works. So is there a process to backfill data? If a community was to take advantage, so as to not have the purchase install date be the beginning. So in other words, all of the Harmony communities, which I kind of listed some things, we track manually
Right.
the information that you're talking about now that your particular system does electronically. Is there a way to go back in time and manually enter that tracking?
So are you asking if you were to install the kiosk today, to backfill the information that you have taken down?
Yes.
It's a great question. And yes, we can potentially. I would have to talk with our developers as to, could we set something up where we could import that data. That data would need to first go into some sort of Excel spreadsheet to be added into that. But it's strange that I've never been asked that question before. And I'm not saying no, but I would need to check with our developers to see if that information could be retroactivated back. I don't see there being a huge issue there, and it does make a lot of sense as to why you would want to do that. But I'll need to get back with you on definitively answering that question.
Fair enough. The next one's a statement. Amy Morgan from Seniorwell says, what an incredible tool. Tiffany Andrews, Franklin, are there any other systems like yours? Who is your competition?
I'm not telling you that.
Yes,
there are other systems out there. The difference between our system, I think, and others is we're specifically designed for senior living. Most of these other systems out there are designed for one size fits all. So in essence, some of these other systems could be utilized in an office building or a hospital or daycare. Our system is, again, designed for senior living. We've been in the business about 7 years. Some of the other competitors out there that have visitor management systems would be, I think you've got Envoy, you've got Swiped On, but really those are just apps, and they're not designed for senior living, and they don't take temperature. And I think they could potentially ask COVID-19 questions, but you're not able to sign residents out and back in. And so, as far as speaking the senior living language, I don't believe any of those competitors are able to do that.
Got it. And Tiffany, you made another statement. Perhaps you want to come off mute. It says, want to share with my company. Maybe you go into more detail with that if you come off mute.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you, Stephen.
Good to see you.
Mr. Mann, I work for the PACE program, and we are not a senior living community, but we check our seniors in and out of our day support center.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not currently open, but everything is being done possible to keep seniors safe when we do reopen our doors. So I've already shared some pictures with my executive director, but we're a national company, but at the same time, if we can come up with a solution that can help us process this, and I imagine that for us, we'll have to track this kind of data. So being able to track that data will be extremely important because CMS will probably want it. So it's good information.
Thank you. And I believe we just installed in a few PACE, and then again, they may not be open yet, but I believe they're through Loretto Senior Living.
Okay.
And I think there were 5 of them.
Sure.
I'll certainly get that information and send it over. But yes, we are designed to be able to accommodate senior centers as well.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Charles, I'll just throw this out now. Would you prefer folks just reach out and chat, or are you okay with me monitoring the chat for you? I don't want to monopolize.
Yeah, I would rather you monitor.
Got it. Okay. Well, next one is Kara Rich. We have one set up here at the Devonshire. We've had it for about 2 months. It's great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cheryl Slavinsky. Are you with any one segment of senior living more than another, i.e. 55 plus, active adult, independent, assisted, skilled?
Yeah, I think we would be, if I had to take a guess right now, we're getting close to about 2,500 communities and should be well over 3,000 before the end of the year. But I think the sweet spot for us would be a combination of assisted living and independent living and memory care, right? That would probably be our sweet spot. I think CCRCs as well, just because there's so many visitors, it just makes it a little bit more difficult because they have so many doors. But I think our sweet spot would be AL, IL, memory care, all combined. We are in a number of, obviously standalone assisted living communities. Skilled nursing had never been, we really didn't put a focus on skilled until sort of regulation started to push this. So skilled nursing has really come on as well. But I think, if I were to guess, most of our communities are that AL, IL, MC.
All right, 2 things, Charles. Number 1, Micah believes he might be able to talk now, so I might go silent. And number 2, he needs you to go ahead and stop sharing.
Okay. Let's see.
Maybe. Well, maybe not, because I don't think you want that.
Micah, we can hear you, but it's like you're in the Swiss Alps. Okay, keep going then. All right. Charles, I've got a question. So from being involved in this particular perspective, do you foresee the need for this type of software long-term, even after, say, a vaccine? And then who else might have access to this data? So you're storing a great deal of data now. Do you foresee where state and local government may come in and say to us in the senior living industry, show me your data on your screening?
Yes, and skilled nursing right now, if a state official comes in to a skilled nursing facility in New York, they are expected to be able to download this information and show it to that official. I do think that is going to be probably best practice in senior living as well. Senior living is a little different, obviously, than skilled nursing because it's private pay. So the state is not quite as involved, although I think we're seeing a shift to look more like skilled nursing. You know, as an operator, and I'm sort of taking my Accushield hat off and talking from an operator's perspective, you know, when you really think about it, a temperature and some of these questions like, you know, have you experienced these symptoms, goes long and far beyond COVID-19. You know, I've been in communities, again, most of my life and seen many residents go to the hospital because they have the flu, right? Well, taking a temperature is a great way to monitor that, as well as ask COVID-19 questions. You know, as an operator, we were never able to do that because I think there would be an uprising if we had tried to do this type of thing previous to COVID-19. But I think it gives operators the ability now to actually, you know, test for some of these things, right? Some of these symptomatic, you know, signs that someone is sick. And if you can catch that, I think it's good for everyone. As far as a vaccine goes, if there is a vaccine, that is part of what we are building and developing, is the ability for this kiosk to validate a COVID-19 credential. And so that is something that's sort of next generation. But should there be a vaccine, or should, you know, the community want to validate that someone has a negative COVID test in the last, you know, in the last 48 hours, those are the kind of things that we're thinking through as you know, we're kind of building this plane, you know, as we fly it.
Excellent. All right. The next one is from Carrie Jackson. How far does the data stay in the system once the system is set up?
Great question. So the day we install, we begin to collect and store that data. Where we store that data is a HIPAA compliant cloud. It's an Amazon cloud, and that's where we store that data. So the answer is the day we install, you'll be able to go back and see that information. And let's say 2 years from now, you wanted to go back to today. You could see that information and you could create reports based on the information that is loaded into the kiosk, whether it's a visitor, staff member, family friend, maybe it's a resident signing out, right? We sign out residents. We can take their temperature as they leave and take the temperature as they come back. So that's sort of a reverse method of sign in and out.
Excellent. Stacy Kenyon, this is a great option that allows the staff to not be so involved with the actual check-in, which I'm sure all of our concierges would appreciate.
Right. The staff check-in side is really been what's been, I think, most talked about. And so in that now we have begun to create integrations. We're about to complete our integration with Kronos and some other time and attendance companies. And so we're working on that process now. And basically the idea is that they do their screening at the front of the community and then they go and they check in, right? So that they don't go all the way back and check in without going through that screening process. And, you know, there's a lot of different ways to integrate that. Maybe it's, hey, you can't check in until you've gone through your health screening. Or if you check in without going through the health screening, someone in the community is alerted that a staff member bypassed, you know, the temperature check and the COVID-19 questions before they enter.
The next one is, hello?
Can you hear me now? Am I
Yes.
echoing?
Yeah.
No.
Echo. All right.
And my job is done. Ladies and gentlemen, Micah Hunt.
Well done.
Steven, you have been an amazing host as well. So I appreciate everybody for their technology. I love technology. Charles, thank you for the presentation. It's been amazing. The questions are great.
Yeah.
Somebody else was saying, Christy says that they have tutor communities in Georgia and they love it. Very user-friendly. Awesome. And also adds a level of security to building as well, which our families also appreciate.
Yeah.
One other question that I wanted to inquire was, are you seeing with this device that you're seeing like more staff turn away or more staff getting exposed or, you know, going, hey, you need to go home? Are you seeing anything with that because of this device that you're able to detect?
Yeah, I wouldn't put this out to, on our website or anything, but yeah, we have. And a lot of it has been around just the questions that have been asked, right? One of the questions for staff members that I think is very common right now is, have you taken any fever reducing medication in the past 12 hours, right? Those are the kind of things that those questions will be able to potentially prompt, right, to take it to a secondary screening process. And we also, and I didn't really talk about this on our on this sort of demo and discussion, but we have the ability to take pulse oximetry readings, right? If someone in that second level, right, they have a temperature and you want to, bring them aside and you want to test for pulse oximetry, that's another really good way of understanding the health of a person, because obviously COVID attacks the lungs, right? And when those lungs fill up, then that's where that pulse oximetry reading could be off, and that would be sort of a secondary screening method. But yes, I think the last I checked, there was something like 10,000 yeses that staff members have checked. Now, some of those could have been just because they fat fingered it, right? But we have had a lot of people ask very unique questions. They change the questions so they're not just automatically just doing, right, just the no. They change those questions back and forth so that their staff really has to read those questions to make sure that they are in line with protocol.
Now, to elaborate on that, somebody asked, the important question is, if meds are taken for temperature, is that something that you're seeing, or is that a question on there by any chance?
Yeah. Have you taken meds in the last 12 hours? I think that would it wouldn't necessarily say that they couldn't go to work today. It would just be a secondary screening process, because they're taking, medication for a reason. And it's really fever reducing medication, not, other types, right? We're talking about Advil and Tylenol, those kind of things that would require, hey, well, tell me why you're taking that. What have you had a temperature? Those kind of things.
That's awesome. That's really impressive. And then somebody else was asking, if that happens and the employees do not check in the process, will it prompt them to do it at the time clock? At the time clock, if it is integrated, or how does that work if you're seeing that? Like, what happens next?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways that integration could work. You could say that, hey, every employee has to go through the screening process at the front of the community before they're able to check into the time clock. The other is they can check in, but it will alert via text message or email if someone checks in and fails to complete the screening process. So it would really just be up to the community to make that decision.
And then the other question, I'll let other people ask. I'm just reading the chat. So as people are telling me, because I know not everybody wants to be on the screen and share their questions, I get that. So can you customize questions based off the client needs and wants, or is it state and local guidelines restricted?
Totally customizable to the community. And usually a community will base it on CDC requirements, but you can ask different questions daily to your staff members, different from your visitors, different from your third-party healthcare providers. One question that we're getting from home health providers, right? Communities are saying, well, we want to ask home health providers something different, like, have you been to a community nearby that has been, that has had a COVID-19 case? Those are the kind of things you're able to ask and, I think collect, in an effort to create a safer environment.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any other questions? I'm going to go around the screen we have probably like 75% of you all are not sharing your screen. So if you want to ask a question, either use the cool reactions thing to put your hand up that you want to ask a question, or Peter Larson, I see you. Oh my gosh, he is a hoot. But does anybody else have any questions at all? Okay, well, I'm going to stop recording. So now we